Hello everyone and welcome to this tutorial. I wanted to share with you what I'm trying to achieve in this render, which is a kind of watercolor effect, similar to what we have on the reeds and also on the grass blades. Before we begin, let's be clear on what we're going to try and achieve. You can see we have a rice paper background, and I want my object to be dark in some areas, like where there are shadows, and I want the rest to be kind of transparent to the background, so we can see the rice paper through it. So of course I cannot have just a transparent material on the object, or we would see the objects behind it. And in between, of course, I want to have this kind of watercolor effect. So let's dive into it now. I'm going to delete everything and we'll start from scratch. So the scene here, I'm not going to explain to you how I made it, maybe in another tutorial someday. Let's just do the shading. So first I need a material output, since I deleted mine, and at first let's focus on the first part, which is to get the watercolor effect down. So here in render view, so far we have nothing. So what we're gonna add first is a diffuse shader. So the diffuse shader is going to calculate all the shadows for us. So that's going to be less effort. We're going to send it into a converter shader to RGB node. So it's going to take all the colors from the shader and give them back to us. So I add a RGB to black and white also out of habit, but it was going to be black and white anyways. So now we need to add a color ramp, and that's where the magic is going to happen. So let's plug the value into the factor. So I'm just finishing the setup here so that we can see what's happening. So I'm going to use a emission shader so that the color is sent directly. So right now, nothing much is happening. We have the diffuse shader. We are going through neutral color ramp, and we're emitting it again. So now let's set up the color ramp itself. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a few points here. So let's say a couple that will hold up the gray values. So let's choose first a darkish value for one of them, and let's copy it to the other one. So they will be the same value exactly. Here's for the other one. So now we should have the same values. Oops, looks like we are not having the same values. So let's fix this. Here we go. And what I'm gonna have here is I'm gonna have this a different alpha value, because as we said before, we're trying to obtain a transparent effect. So the lighter it is, the more transparent it is. So here I'm gonna have, so that was 0.75 for the first one, 0.5 for the second, and this one is going to be 0. So when it's white on the picture, then it's fully transparent. So it's kind of doing what we want, but it's straight-ish. So we can see that there is a gradient effect on the shadow, but we need to introduce some randomness in there. So the noise texture is going to help us do just that. So let's add a noise texture. And now the challenge is going to be how we combine it with the rest. So let's add a math node. So this one is going to be the combination of the two. So we're going to multiply the value of the noise texture, the factor, with the value of the diffuse shader. So we can see that the noise texture has a big impact on the rendering here. Everything is darkish now, so we need to fix that. So we're going to duplicate the math node and try and obtain a brighter color. So here I divided by 0.5. I could have multiplied by 2 maybe. So I'm going to adjust the parameters now for the noise texture. So detail is cranked up, and now we need to have some adequate scale. So not too big actually. We need to have a smallish scale, and by playing with it, we arrive to something that is suitable. Here we can see that it's bleeding just maybe like watercolor or Chinese ink painting would do. So it's about right. You can fiddle with it until you're happy with the results. But for now, we'll leave it at that, and we'll begin to concentrate on the second part. So the goal here is to have the black areas or dark areas be just that dark, and the lighter areas to be somewhat transparent to some background texture that we have. So the first thing that we have to do is add an image texture containing our background. So here we go. Then we select the image we want. So I have it loaded already. Then for those of you who have Node Wrangler, Control T, those others will have to do that by hand. So I use window coordinates. Maybe camera would work as well. Anything that's view dependent and not object dependent. Then I'm going to duplicate my emission shader here and plug the color in it. And oh no, we need a mix shader in between, of course. So here we go. So pay attention to the order. I plug that in. So we want the mix shader to decide between the color and the transparency. So we're going to plug the alpha in it. So that's what's going to happen. So when it's dark, we have the top line, and when it's light, we have the bottom line. So you can also, if you're not happy with the result, you can also fiddle with the controls here. So maybe the emission is not to your liking. Well, you can try and adjust that, but you'll see in a moment that it's not our main problem. Now you can also, if you want it darker or if you want more influence on the noise texture, also fiddle with the divide value here. Well, here, if we want to have more defined lines, what we need is actually to adjust the color ramp. And as you can see here, it's beginning to look a lot more like watercolor. So let's render. So we're going to have some freestyle lines that's going to appear. That's a different topic. So you can see it's rendered transparent, and now the compositor is going to kick in. So the compositor itself is pretty simple. So let's go over it quickly. I'm not going to do that from scratch again. So it's just my rice paper texture over the render layer. Well, the render layer over the Chinese rice paper. And that's it. So here we go. Let's render again just for fun. Thank you for watching. Please leave a comment, a like, and subscribe if you want. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.